already here, and if you know him, he doesn't need much introduction. But most recently, he's involved in Zero Expo, working to integrate compliance into privacy. If he hides behind me, maybe he's private. But I personally consider him really a warrior in the privacy and blockchain space. So please give it up for Ameen.
Hello.
Oh, that's the...
Oh, it's actually that one. Sorry.
Oh. I can't see the slides, though, right, on the laptop? I have to just look. OK. Oh, I can see it up there. Nice. Great. So this talk is called The Fight for Privacy. And subtext is why the Tornado Cash developers deserve our support. I'm Ameen Soleimani. I'm working on privacy pools in Oxbow. So last year I gave a talk called Why Privacy, and I wanted to reiterate some of this because privacy is normal, you fucking freaks. We shouldn't really need to actually justify this, but we should start maybe with a warm-up. I'm going to say privacy is, and you guys are going to say normal. Privacy is. Normal. Privacy is. Normal. Privacy is. Normal. Thank you. Full surveillance CBDCs are coming, and governments abuse their power all the time. I brought this up last year as well. Sometimes you design systems with good intentions, but they end up under the power of people you didn't expect. The Nazis in World War II were thrilled to discover how great the Dutch KYC was because it helped them figure out where all the Jews were. And that's why the Netherlands had the highest rate of Jews massacred out of any of the other European countries. So give it up for Dutch KYC. Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Tornado Cash story. It was a privacy protocol used to generate fresh wallets. Why did we make this? Because we saw Zcash, we were jealous, we thought it was cool. We didn't want to reveal our transaction history and balances with every payment that we ever sent. There's a DAO called Moloch DAO, which I helped start, which funded a bunch of the development of it. It was trying to make an open source privacy protocol to protect the security of ETH users. It was the second ZK Snark deployment in history. There's a 1,000-person trusted setup ceremony, and the Tornado Cash team actually rage built the dApp in about 3 weeks after being rejected for the grant. We narrowed it down to 2 people, picked the other guys, and they were so pissed off that they just built it anyway, and it was beautiful. And then we continued to fund the rest of their grants retroactively, as well as their audits and the trusted setup ceremony and things like that. And we used it for our personal privacy. I used it for payroll, and Vitalik, the hero, used it to send money to Ukraine and stuff. I wonder how many of the people who sanctioned the contract, sent money to Ukraine. Everything was going fine until North Korea allegedly hacked a video game, Axie Infinity, for $600 million. Why a video game had $600 million, I don't know. It's a different story. And they started pushing some of those funds into the Tornado Cash contracts. And about $100 million went into it. And on August 8th, I think 2022, OFAC sanctioned the Tornado Cash contracts. And there was legal action against Alexey 2 days later. He was arrested here because he came from Russia seeking a better life. He was released on bail after 9 months of being held without bail. And he was charged with laundering over 500,000 ETH, which he should have suspected was of criminal origin, charges which he has denied. And his trial was 2 weeks ago. I was there, Ellie was there, a couple of us. And FIOD, the financial Dutch regulators, I don't know how to say it, they requested 5 years in prison for Alexey. The verdict for this trial will be announced in 1 month on May 14th. This is a protest that was organized here in Amsterdam when he was arrested. And you can see people holding up signs that say, free Alexey, open source is not a crime, privacy is not a crime. Thank you all for your support in that. More recently, there was legal action against Roman Storm. So 1 year after Alexey's arrest on August 23rd, 2023, Roman was arrested at his home at gunpoint in front of his 3-year-old daughter. The FBI director said, "Today's announcement should remind criminal organizations everywhere in the world that they are neither untraceable nor anonymous. You can't hide from us behind a keyboard, whether you're a hacker or a facilitator," which is absurd because Roman Storm wasn't hiding. He was actually cooperating with the investigation. The code was on GitHub, and all of the updates were basically tweeted. So if they didn't like what we were doing, why didn't they send a pull request? Roman is charged with one count of conspiracy to commit money laundering, 1 count of conspiracy to violate sanctions, and conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business. He could face a total of up to 25 years in prison. He was released on bail, but he pled not guilty, and his trial is on September 23rd in New York. I plan to be there as well. I don't know if this video playing is going to work, if this has sound and is hooked up, so I'm probably going to skip this, but this is a video that Roman made. You can find it on his Twitter, rstormf, and he talks about how he could use all of our help in supporting his legal defense, and that he's just a passionate software engineer who is trying to build tools for people to stay safe, and he didn't want any of this. So we started a legal fundraiser for them. It's called, went through Justice DAO, and so a bunch of us donated money to it. Moloch DAO has been basically emptied the treasury, same with Metacartel. Gnosis donated as well. We kicked off a fundraiser on Juicebox where we successfully raised over $1 million. I didn't update those ones. It's 1.5. We actually hit our initial goal, but then we realized that we might be spending more money than we thought, so we're still fundraising for it. So if you are inclined and you have the means, we appreciate the support. I'm going to give some thanks to people who are helping. And so there's Edward Snowden, first up, who helped amplify it and supporting the notion that privacy is not a crime. So there's others. Matter Labs gave 45 ETH, NounsDAO gave 40 ETH, Metacartel 38.7, JessPow.eth 12.6, Vitalik, Noun 12, Koppelman is Martin Koppelman, CEO of Gnosis, BGD Labs, and 800 others who sent what they could. And now I'm going to talk about why the Tornado Cash devs deserve our support. Breaking it down into 3 topics: the compliance tool that they went out of their way to build themselves, the fact that they actually couldn't have stopped anything, and that this legal action against both of them represents a disproportionate misapplication of the law. So some of this got messed up, but the Tornado Cash devs went out of their way to build a compliance tool which allowed users to essentially generate a proof that said which specific deposit you were, so that if required by a regulator, you could dox yourself and say, hey, look, here's my deposit. I'm not those criminal users of the system. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis published a report on Tornado Cash and blockchain privacy generally, where they explored the trade-off between regulation and privacy, and they actually said that privacy is something that is desirable for public blockchains, and that something like Tornado could be a critical part of the public blockchain infrastructure, and they recommended the use of the compliance tool. So the Fed said, hey, use the compliance tool that Tornado made. I should have posted the tweet. The Dutch prosecutor called the compliance tool bullshit, which is remarkable given that the Fed suggested basically mandating that compliance tool as the right means of regulating this whole system. So it's, again, absurd. The developers couldn't have stopped anything. The Assistant Attorney General, on the day of the Tornado legal actions against Roman, they said, As stated in the indictment, the defendant's cryptocurrency service facilitated more than $1 billion in illicit transactions, and they knowingly allowed a globally sanctioned cybercrime group to launder hundreds of millions of dollars on behalf of North Korean regime. The Assistant Attorney General said that the defendants operated Tornado Cash as a safe haven for criminal actors. And so this is what the government is trying to say, is that they made this happen. And you'll see that they couldn't have actually stopped anything. So this is a chart of the ETH in Tornado Cash. That second peak is when it got sanctioned. And so it's true that in the 1 month after the tornado got sanctioned, that the amount of ETH in it fell from about 240K to about 100K. But in the 18 months since then, despite Tornado being sanctioned by the US government, the devs being arrested, the governance being hacked, and the UI being broken as a result of the governance being hacked, the amount of ETH is up 40%. The governance actually got hacked last year while we were here, and they ruined my t-shirts because my t-shirt had the QR code for the tornadocash.eth.link ENS, which was controlled by the DAO, and the governance attack allowed the hacker to basically mint a bunch of governance tokens for themselves and essentially take over the ENS. So I symbolically cut out the QR code out of my t-shirt and burned it so that people would understand that they didn't actually steal any of the money, but they did succeed in ruining my t-shirts. So this explains what I just said. The smart contracts are immutable. They will continue to operate as programmed until the heat death of the universe or the end of the Ethereum blockchain, whichever one comes first. And not even the governance system could actually shut down the smart contracts. There was no admin key to freeze deposits. This would have been a security vulnerability for all users, even the legitimate ones. What if it was hacked? Then everybody's money gets taken. And the smart contract can be accessed from any UI or command line interface. And they tried to do what they could, which was the UI blocked the addresses using the Chainalysis Sanctions API. The conclusion is that these are not the criminals you're looking for. And while I was at Alexey's trial, some of this came up in court. And so the judges asked him, do you think your using the Chainalysis Sanctions Oracle prevented criminal use? And Alexey responded that there is nothing that anyone could do to prevent the users from interacting with the smart contracts. And their next question is telling, because immediately after that they said, well, why didn't you consider implementing KYC to prevent criminal use? Like, do you not understand how any of this works? Clearly not. Or they don't want to, more likely. And then they grilled him on finding the predicament kind of comical, because he said, like, how would you even, cash out 600 million, lol, and the judges are like, did you find this funny? You're not taking this seriously. And his answer is like, well, what would you have had me, do about this? And so it's clear that, like, they don't want to acknowledge that there actually isn't anything that he could have done about it. It's also another absurd part about this is that using Tornado Cash isn't even illegal in the Netherlands. To be clear, me advocating for you guys using Tornado Cash is illegal because technically that's a conspiracy. As a U.S. citizen, that's a conspiracy to promote violating international sanctions. But you guys have it's not sanctioned here, it's not illegal here. And so the regulators in the Netherlands are actually the only entity who could limit the use of Tornado Cash, at least in this country. And they have not used their power to do so. They prefer instead to try and imprison Alexey for writing unstoppable code, and maybe the regulators should be the ones who are prosecuted for not doing enough to limit the use of Tornado Cash. In my opinion, if you're trying to throw the wrong guy in a box, you deserve to be in a box. So disproportionate misapplication of the law. This is a meme I made about how when banks who can actually stop criminal activity and have the power, and they don't, they don't actually get like criminal charges, they get fined. And the Tornado Cash gets crucified. So this is some notes. The cartels, when the HSBC was money laundering for the cartels, $900 million. No one went to jail. No one was sanctioned. There was a civil enforcement by OFAC, and there was a deferred prosecution with fines, essentially, by the Department of Justice. And with Tornado Cash, OFAC went straight for sanctions. The Department of Justice and FIOD went straight for criminal indictment. And FIOD requested Alexey has 5 years in jail. And so the Tornado Cash devs are fighting for all of us. The outcome of this will have far-reaching consequences for ETH devs and users, especially people working on privacy tools. If they lose, they face imprisonment, and government overreach will only reach further. This is just to explain how the judges and prosecutors think. At one point, they were taking issue with the idea that they made the code open source. So they asked them in court, is it possible to have deployed the smart contract but not made the code public and open source? And I actually lost my shit in the courtroom, and I very loudly exclaimed, I was like, what? And almost got thrown out. Everybody started staring at me and stuff. I actually went up and asked one of the guys at FIOD after this happened. I was like, hey, have you ever used a smart contract before? He's like, yes. I'm like, would you use a smart contract if the code was not open source? He's like, I see where you're going with this. I'm like, yeah, I bet you do. I forgot to bring up my noggles, but I wanted to give special thanks to NounsDAO and Brennan.eth. He wrote a manifesto that I think is relevant, and I'll read it out, along with their donation of 40 ETH to the legal defense. We find ourselves at a pivotal juncture in history, where our actions and decisions will significantly influence the landscape of commerce and freedom. Across our global village, voices rise in unison, advocating for the liberty to engage in commerce, for the autonomy to innovate without undue hindrance, and for the sovereignty to partake in the vast tapestry of global trade. These are not mere theoretical concepts. They are the bedrock upon which we construct our shared economic future. Let us be clear. Our resistance is not born out of a disregard for governance or societal welfare. Instead, it is rooted in the belief that true economic prosperity flourishes in an environment of freedom and open competition. Our struggle is not against regulation per se, but against the overreach that stifles innovation, creativity, and equitable access to markets. Thus, let us advance with determination, not as adversaries of regulation, but as advocates for balanced and reasonable frameworks that nurture innovation and equitable commerce. Let our resistance be a testament to our commitment to economic freedom, a beacon for open trade, and a clarion call for the empowerment of all participants in the global market. Thank you, NounsDAO and Brennan Gotti. Go away, man. Sit down. Special thanks to them that we turned this into NFTs and you can buy them and support the cause. We just take a second to talk about privacy pools. So we're advancing with the privacypools.com, the compliance tool that the Tornado Cash team pioneered. Users can basically publicly dissociate from illicit funds, when you deposit into the system. If we do a traceback on the money that comes in and we figure out, did this come from a DeFi hack or some terrorist, and if it does, then we exclude it from our whitelist, and people who withdraw can prove, they say, hey, look, I'm not going to tell you exactly which deposit I am, but I can prove to you that I'm none of those guys. And so we think this bridges the gap between privacy and compliance. It allows the good guys to have privacy, but not necessarily associate with people they don't want to while they're doing so. It helps accomplish the regulatory objective, which in our mind is isolating the illicit funds while still providing privacy for legitimate users. And testnet is live. It'll probably go live in a couple weeks. And so this is sort of the idea of how it works. You can exclude provably exclude from your anonymity set the people that you would like to not associate with. Shipped a working demo last ETHDenver, published a paper with Vitalik on privacy pools and compliance, worked with Dr. Fabian Schar and his team from University of Basel. We've been presenting the work at our regulatory conferences. I'm a compliance guy now. Shocker. And so, yeah, we built this, and I'm now advising a company called Oxbow, Zero Expo, which is doing the monitoring and actually building the whitelist. So if you're building privacy infrastructure and you would like to discuss how to be compliant, we're ready to talk to you. And so in conclusion, putting the devs in chains for eternity and feeding their guts to the eagles will not put out the fire of zero-knowledge proofs. In the future, the future that we want depends on zero-knowledge privacy, freedom versus central bank digital currencies. We want blockchain democracy. You want to be able to vote without being coerced or bribed or revealing it and being insecure. And so in the story of Prometheus, Hercules actually comes and frees Prometheus. And so we can all be Hercules together and free our Promethean friends who dared to steal the fire of zero-knowledge proofs from the gods on our behalf. Please follow Free Alexey Roman, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do you want to answer some questions? Do you want to take questions very quickly? We can spend like 3 minutes on it. But you guys have to go on Slido and type in your questions, because they're actually surprisingly, there weren't any questions, which means they either did such an amazing job, there are no questions.
All right, you guys have 3 minutes.
Let's see. No. Ideally, it all goes through the Slido. What is your philosophical view on actual compliance? If you can try and summarize that, because we didn't really get too into that, and you said you're a compliance guy now.
I'd like to keep my friends out of prison as a primary objective, and I think we're going to eventually want. Hello. We're going to want to. Yeah. We're going to want to build things that allow us to secure our communities. And so maybe the government mandates that we have to have certain requirements, but even if they didn't, things like privacy pools where I can provably dissociate from people are interesting to me, and I think preferable for me than something that forces me to associate with people I don't want. I think the freedom of association implies the freedom of dissociation. So.
Okay, well, we have some questions. Did you bring your noggles? You said no, right?
They're in my backpack over there somewhere.
Well, so I think someone wants to do something with you. I don't know. Good luck. The top question here is, if systems are fully automated, surely privacy pools will decollateralize protocols that were developed before privacy pools were made. Would you like to give that a crack?
I don't really understand the question. What does decollateralize mean?
Let's see. Does someone want to shout that? Okay, we're going to move on. Where do I get the NFT that you mentioned?
Yes, follow Free Alexey Roman on Twitter, and you can check out their tweets and see the NFT fundraiser from the manifesto that the Nouns DAO, Brennan.eth, made.
Perfect. Why don't you work together with the government?
We are trying to. Not every government has the same views about privacy. America likes to spy on everybody. The Swiss are somewhat more enlightened about this, as you might guess. And so they understand the value of privacy. Their central banks are the only people I've ever heard that actually wanted privacy for their citizens, for their CBDC, which is kind of astonishing because they understand that if they build a system poorly and there's a massive data honeypot of everybody's financial history, eventually it's going to get hacked and they're going to reveal that to everybody, and they don't think that's a very good idea.
Fair enough. And we'll take this one as the last question. What are the next steps if the judgment against Alexey is unfavorable? What are the implications to smart contract developers? Great question.
I think the next steps are, we keep fighting. Alexey can appeal the judgment, and we can escalate it to other courts. And then the implications for smart contract developers are, it depends on how it goes and like which of the charges end up, being used against them. But the kinds of thing that, one of the things that was brought up in court. Hello. Okay. Basically, that they said that if he couldn't control it, he shouldn't have made they shouldn't have made it immutable because one day it could have been used for crime. And I think that's like the really bad, most pernicious possible, because then it's like you could be I don't know, you make Uniswap v2 and then somebody LPs on it and then that's used for crime and then they come after you because you made the thing, and that's like not a world anybody wants to live in. So I think we should try to fight this case and also try to work with regulators to make laws that help give us some more certainty around the tools that we're building.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, and I'll take that from you. Thank you.